Volanus spun into the middle of the room, going faster and faster. As he did so, chairs started shaking and tables started sliding around the room. The Superflies could barely make out Volanus's voice as he cackled, "Since you love your superhero friends so much, you can perish with them." Suddenly, a chair flew into the air, spinning around the twister. Another chair and then another joined it. One by one, the logs were sucked out of the fireplace. A table was overturned and began spinning around the room with the chairs and logs, caught in the great whirlwind. "Whoa!" Squirrel yelled as he was sucked up into the spinning wind, too. Chester watched as each of the Superflies were sucked into the whirlwind. Even the unconscious men in Volanus's gang were now spinning around in the swirling wind. Chester headed straight for Volanus in the middle of the whirlwind, fist raised. But as he got close, he, too, was sucked up. The wind kept growing, and everyone was spinning faster and faster. The skin on their faces began to flap around, becoming loose. Bits of fur started to fly off Squirrel. Arms and legs were pinned against their owners' bodies, except for Chester's. Pop! A chair exploded into 1,000 slivers. Crack! A table split. Squirrel yelled out, "Chester, if we keep spinning like this, our bodies will be ripped apart just like that chair and table." And as he said it, another chair and table exploded. Chester replied, "Everybody think. He's a superflaw. He has to have a big flaw tied to his power. What could it be? Think." "What ties to wind?" asked Squirrel as he tried to catch his breath. "What stops wind?" As the speed continued to increase, Chester spun past the window. He looked out as he passed by it, and looked again the next time he passed by. Finally, he grabbed the window ledge and held on as tight as he could, stopping himself. Looking out over the barren landscape, he cried, "That's it! I got it!" The window ledge tore loose, putting Chester back into the wind, but he managed to call out, "Squirrel, open your pouch! I can't move!" Volanus gave a wicked laugh. "This will be the end of all of you!" Ha 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 ha! Julie screamed, "None of us can move!" "I can, but Squirrel is too far from me." "String Bean, open your mouth!" demanded Chester. As String Bean obeyed and opened his mouth, his tongue flew out and soon circled the room, flapping around in the great twirling wind. Chester grabbed onto it and started to pull himself toward Squirrel. "Make some noise, Squirrel. I can hardly keep my eyes open. I need to hear you to know where you are." "Here, over here, more, a little more." Pop! A stone flew out of the wall and into the spinning air. It exploded into dust. Pop, pop, pop! More stones flew out of the wall and exploded into dust. Lisa yelled, "We're about to lose String Bean," as she saw him flying around the room, his skin flapping loose and wild. Chester made 2 last pulls on the tongue and finally reached Squirrel. "No, we're not." "You won't be able to take my pouch off," moaned Squirrel. "Don't need to. When I open it, the wind will suck 'em out." Chester slowly reached out, fighting against the wind with all his might. Arrgh! He reached the pouch and unsnapped it. The flowers inside were immediately sucked into the whirlwind. Abruptly, the Superflies heard a giant sneeze. The wind died down, the spinning stopped, and everyone fell to the floor. Volanus stood in the middle of the room and sneezed again. "Achoo!" And again, "Achoo!" And again, "Achoo!" At each sneeze, he was flung backward through the air, crashing first into one wall, then another. He continued to sneeze. "Achoo!" One sneeze sent him spinning backward into somersaults. Another sent him flipping into cartwheels. He landed on the floor in front of the window, his back to it. His nose was bright red, his eyes watering. He began to prepare for the biggest sneeze yet. Ah, 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 achoo! This last sneeze shot him out of the window at amazing speed. Chester got up and looked to the window, watching as Volanus became a dot in the sky that eventually disappeared from sight. He frowned. He'll be back. Julie and Lisa joined him at the window. "But you'll be ready." Chester looked at them and said, "No, we'll be ready." They smiled at each other as Chester put his arms around the 2 girls. Squirrel jumped up onto the window. "Good thinking, Chester. No plants anywhere. Not a flower, not a tree, not a single blade of grass." "Something that ties in with the wind," added Chester. Chester and Squirrel declared together, "Hay fever." "Really, really bad hay fever," added Squirrel. "You're going to need some new flowers for those lady squirrels." "Ah, Chester, those didn't work anyway." "Maybe I'll try acorns." Chester nodded in agreement. "Now you're thinking like a squirrel." "Oh my gosh, the superheroes!" shouted Lisa. They looked around the room frantically. Chester found the radio, too tiny to be destroyed by Volanus's whirlwind. Chester fell onto the floor and desperately yelled into it. George, George, do you copy? He waited for a reply from George. Nothing. George, this is Chester. Do you copy? They're okay, George's voice crackled through the radio. I made it in time. The superheroes are all safe. They all cheered and hugged, giddy with relief.